morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us in another episode of Angie Speaks Stronger Than Splinters in our ongoing series, Clarity in Crisis. And with us is our esteemed guest, Dr. Brown, Dr. Gloria Brown. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Brown. How are you this morning?
I'm great. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us for sure. Now, today we're going to focus on how to turn our emotional scars into stars. Let me say that one more time. How to turn emotional scars into stars. In other words, how to be proud of your scars. Now, I do realize that many of us are going through some very turbulent times. Our society is in chaos, but it's for that very reason why we feel the need to hold these sessions to help each other to navigate these crises. For sure, we're going through some really tough times. But Dr. Brown, can you tell us this morning, by the way, give the audience a little bit of background of your own credentials and why you're the candidate to talk to them about how to navigate these crises.
Well, okay. I'm a psychologist and a life coach. I couldn't
hear you. Could you start over?
I'm a psychotherapist and a life coach, and I have practiced for over 20 years. I have worked with people who are suffering with anxiety, with fear, with depression, and most have found it a very rewarding experience to go through the pain and to end up benefiting, learning how to benefit from the pain.
Wow, so 20 years in private practice, and you've helped different communities of people to overcome and to navigate anxiety, depression, and all kinds of emotional struggles. And you are also a doctor, as we know, educated at Columbia University. So yes, I would say that you're qualified to give us some nuggets, yes? So here's the thing. Can you tell me, because today we are focused on specifically emotional scars, because there are many kinds of scars. There's the emotional, physical, the mental. Today we're focused on emotional scars. Can you tell me, Dr. Brown, what are some examples of the most prevalent emotional scars? Because there may be a wide range of them. But can you give me an example of the ones that you see the most in your private practice?
Yes, the people that I see in my private practice pretty much struggle from rejections, feelings of rejections, feelings of abandonment, and feeling unloved.
So it's rejection, and what was the second one? Resentment? Is that what you said?
Rejection, abandonment, and feeling unloved.
Rejection, abandonment, and feeling unloved. Those are some powerful ones for sure. And can you tell me how do you help people to really identify? Because we have established in previous weeks that in order to really get on a journey for healing, we have to be aware, right? Awareness is like a very key component and will continue to be the thread that we drive home each week, this idea of being aware. And how can people become aware of an emotional scar? What would be the process for them to become aware? Because sometimes we're going through stuff. I know for myself, I struggle with anxiety. You know, that's my scar, also known as my splinter. And I didn't necessarily know or wasn't aware of how deep that ditch in my life was. So please tell us, Dr. Brown, how can people become aware?
Well, becoming aware of our scars aren't the easiest thing. Most times we don't want to be aware of them. We want to be rid of them, but they pop up no matter how we, and they oftentimes pop up in having difficulty having a healthy relationship. Sometimes they pop up in having disturbing flashbacks. Oftentimes they pop up in terms of having emotional detachment.
Wow.
Not, you know, a sense of being a shortened life, feeling like you're not going to live long. Some people choose to rely on drugs, alcohol, other addictive substances. And, you know, depression, anxiety. This is how things pop up for us often.
But, you know, why would people not want to be aware? Like, why would they not want to be aware? You said sometimes we don't want to be aware. What's the reason for that?
Well, no one wants to live in pain. We want to do every single thing that we can to forget and get away from pain. But healing requires us to confront that pain. And as we confront that pain, to understand it from a different perspective. And a different perspective makes it more bearable.
Right. A different perspective makes it more bearable. So therefore, we try to avoid awareness. Is that what I'm understanding?
No. We avoid awareness because we don't want to have painful memories. We all want to have memories. But good memories aren't going to help us solve the unsolvable situations in our lives. And so what we have to do is we have to make time. We have to first decide that, yes, you know, I am going to dedicate the time to understand what's going on inside of me. And helps with some kind of a professional person, you know, a professional person that's skilled in understanding human behavior.
Well, I know for myself, dealing with anxiety, I don't know if it's that I didn't want to be aware of it. I think it's more that I just wanted it out of my way so I can get on with my life. I feel like it was a bother. It was a hindrance. It was bugging me. It was you know, I was annoyed with it. Sometimes I still am. Just want it out of my way. I was aware that I was anxious, but I didn't want to have to deal with it. But I suppose, you know, and listening to you, and it's a form of not wanting to be aware, because for me to take the time to really investigate it, really did dig up, you know, it's a lot of painful memories, and some of which I still deal with. I tend to have thoughts of doom and gloom, and I could be doing something really recreational and just have a thought just pop in my head, an intrusive thought that is just really dreadful, type you want to run away from, but I can't. I have to deal with it. So I understand clearly why people would not want to be aware, because awareness brings a certain level of responsibility, and we don't always want to be responsible, right? I mean, responsibility sometimes it's just too much. I want to run away from the responsibility. You know, my children, they love to talk about how much I can't wait till I'm 25. Rachel, when she's 25, she's going to do this and that and the other. And my son, I can't wait till I'm 18 because we'll have all this freedom. And I look at them and I go, you're going to wish you were young again when you reach that age group, because the responsibility that comes with that age group can be so overwhelming at times. But for now, I let them continue to dream on about being a grown-up. So tell me, Dr. Brown, what are some unseen or maybe some traumatic events that can happen in our childhood that can cause this emotional pain?
Okay, well, the death of a parent or a close family relative, mental illness in families can cause that. We don't usually, you know, who thinks about their parents as having a mental illness? This is mommy, and this is who she's always been. But the problem is, for all her life, what she's been is ill, and unless someone intervenes and helps, it continues. It ends up being a situation sort of like the frog in that pot. You've been in there for so long that you think it's normal. You see? The things that can cause scars are being sexually assaulted and being bullied in school.
The bully is a serious one. Wow. So tell me about your personal scar that you've been able to turn into stars by being a doctor and helping all these people and continue to help people. Tell us how you were able to turn your own personal scar into stars.
Well,
and what was one thing that you struggled with the most? What was the main scar that you had to overcome?
I think feelings of abandonment.
Feelings of abandonment.
Right, was the main thing. And I was fortunate enough to come across people who had experience in human suffering. I suppose I could say it like that. Actually, while I was in the service, initially I had a manager who was a social worker, and he was very helpful to me in many ways. But one of the ways was to help me to become aware of more aware of behavioral issues and problems, and so that began my journey, and as well as recommending that I speak to someone. Of course, when he made that recommendation, I didn't think I needed to speak with anyone at all.
You didn't think you needed to speak to anyone? No, why is that? Is it because you weren't aware, or because you were ashamed, or because you didn't have enough time?
I wasn't aware.
And
I didn't believe I had a problem. I thought everybody else was the one.
Really, you don't have a problem. Okay. You thought everybody else had the problem? Is that what you said? Yeah? It must be them, not me. Okay. All right. So how did that help?
So, you know, once I became aware of problems because of studying under him and working with him, as I began to experience these things, I was able to pay more attention to it. And as these problems began to interfere with my ability to function, I went on and put myself into counseling. And it was the best.
The problem interfered with your ability to function. How did that manifest itself? Because you managed to become a doctor. So exactly how did it interfere with your ability to function? And that can be tricky, because you can be succeeding in so many areas of your life, but still have these things that need to be addressed. And then people will look at you and think, there ain't nothing wrong with you.
Right. Well, as far as people are concerned, we have to let people stay where they are with their thoughts.
Okay.
It's okay. For me, I felt I wanted to be the best that I could. And I noticed that it's problems with relationships, leading to feelings of anger, disappointment. You know, these things just interfere with our ability to stay focused and to reach our goals.
Absolutely.
And since I was absolutely determined in my case not to be poor.
You're allergic to being poor, huh? Allergic to poverty.
Actually, poverty is one of the things that can cause scars, because in poverty here, you're not good enough. I mean, even if we have to get fake things, fake Gucci, fake this or that, to help ourselves feel good, you see? So
that's very interesting perspective. Poverty can cause scars. Absolutely, I can see how that is.
Unlovable, you see? I'm not good enough. I'm not okay. I'm not enough. And of course, These are all lies, but you know, these are not even lies that we have to create ourselves. All you have to do is look on TV and look at some commercial that says, if you want to be good enough, buy this, buy that. And so
use this toothpaste. You
huh?
want to attract the right person, you got to use Colgate. I'm just kidding.
Everything.
I'm not trying to make light of this. By the way, I want to ask this question. Is it possible that it can seem insensitive for us to be discussing how to turn your scars into stars in this environment when there are people being murdered, wives leaving the, you know, losing their husband to brutality and murder by those who are supposed to protect them, children who are left fatherless because of murder? Do you think there's an element that could be portrayed by us as being insensitive, or?
Not, absolutely not. In fact, the complete opposite. What we're telling people is adversity doesn't have to take us down, no matter what type of adversity it is. In fact, not only does it not have to take us down, but you know, if we invest the time and energy into figuring out how we can use this situation to get to a better place, I think that's outstanding. And that's why I'm here.
Well, it's good to hear from the professional, because I was concerned about that. It sounded to me in my ears a little insensitive, how to turn your scars into stars while we're in the middle of such turmoil, confusion, pain, and suffering. And so much tears. Oh, the tears that I've been seeing in the news is just overwhelming. So thank you for that perspective, that you're trying to show us that the scars doesn't have to take us down. And the other part of that is that I don't want people to think that, well, I don't know that people think this, but this is just my own personal thought process, that sometimes we tend to think that because I have a scar, I'm healed. And I've learned that that is not necessarily so. What do you think about that?
Well, what do you mean that by because I have a scar, I'm healed?
Because, you know, sometimes I've heard, you know, your scar is a evidence that you overcame, that you're no longer, you know, suffering, but it's not necessarily true. I don't think so. I mean, my struggle with anxiety, yes, I have come a long way and I've navigated it pretty effectively, but I'm not completely healed and completely whole. And I think it's a false narrative to say that simply because I have a scar, that means I'm healed and overcame it. Am I wrong?
Well, I think we're talking about perfection here. Okay. And on this eternity, that's not going to happen for us.
Okay.
There is a big difference between being stuck, stifled in your pain, and learning to overcome the pain to reach your goals in life. It makes a big difference. I think we're talking about perfection here. And on this eternity, that's not going to happen.
So I have issues with perfectionism. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're telling me? Are you diagnosing me right now?
But I think all of us want to be perfect in what we do. But we don't have to be perfect, and we can't be perfect. Only God is perfect. You see?
Okay. Well, we know that intellectually, but then, you know. But yeah, there is this belief that if you have a scar, it means that you overcame, but not necessarily. But there's also the truth that if you have a scar, you also weren't buried by it either. So that's the other side of it. It means that you're still here. You didn't commit suicide. You didn't, you know, succumb to the ravages of the wound. So in a sense, it represents that you are making progress and that you are a survivor. But it's that whole thing of moving from survivor to thriving, which I think is probably what we need more guidance on, not just to navigate it, but to thrive. And I think that's how we become the stars, right?
Well, yes. As I was saying, for myself, I decided to go into counseling, and when I went into counseling, I had to confront things that I didn't want to see, and that takes time. How much time depends on the individual. And then once I admitted that, hey, you know, this thing did happen, this person did do this to me, and so sometimes we don't want to see that, you see, because we want to think that the people in our lives are good, and we don't want to attach any negativity to them.
Right.
But when we find that negativity is there, then ultimately what we have to do is forgive. And that's a big one. It takes a long time to get to where, you know, you've been inflicted with all this pain, unnecessary. And the pain is twofold, you know. The pain is not just the wound or the scar, but what it means to you. And many times, you know, as I said, we can interpret that pain as meaning that we're not good enough, that we're lovable. And to know, to get to a point in therapy, to know that, what? You mean to tell me I've been wasting my time all this time with all these thoughts? I could have been accomplishing this, and I could have been accomplishing that.
I literally felt that too. You know, I felt like I was in this trance for so many years. And then one day I just woke up like, what have I been doing? But it did take time to invest in myself. I literally felt like, was I sleeping? I was in like a fog for all this time. I didn't even know that whole thing about being aware again. But I wasn't aware that I'd been sleeping on my life, sleeping on my possibilities, sleeping on my promise. I was clueless. Oh my gosh, that was such a revolutionary period. By the way, thank you, Ruth, for joining, and Adrian, thanks for joining. So yeah, you're right. This feeling of being unlovable and rejected and all these things can definitely leave you in a place where you feel like you really can't overcome the scar. The other part of it is, based on what's going on today in our society, you know, you talk a lot about, as a therapist, you got to talk about it, you got to sit down and talk. Do you ever feel like sometimes talking is futile? Like, I mean, you're probably going to say no because you're a therapist, but sometimes I have to say, I'm tempted to think, especially with the whole racial thing in America, I'm like, they've been talking since I came to this country. And that's a long time ago. Does talking really do much? I mean, I'm not saying we shouldn't talk. I'm just wondering if it really, I mean, it helped personally, but on a global or on a societal collective scale, do you really think it's really accomplishing much? Should we keep talking?
Oh, I think we need to keep talking, because when we stop talking, we're going to pick up the gun, okay?
Oh, but stop talking, we're going to pick up the gun. Well, people are already picking up the guns, so I don't know.
More of us will, okay?
More of us will, okay.
Talking, I think talking is not just for the purpose of talking. It should be for the purpose of understanding each other's worth, understanding what each person brings, focusing on that thing that God told us to do, which is to love one another, you know? And he said, even the unlovable, we're supposed to love, you know? So I think that if we're talking to try to understand and respect and accept one another, then it's worthwhile. But if we're just talking,
to blow our hair, it doesn't matter. It doesn't do anything. I get it. So we're about to wrap up in about 5 minutes. So give the audience again the steps for healing.
Okay.
We know awareness is a big part. We're going to talk about awareness all the time, because without it, we just can't make any progress. So, but
So
give us the steps for healing.
step one, make time to even think about the fact that things may not be going well.
Make time to think about the fact that things may not be what?
Going well.
May not be going well.
And then during that time, make decisions about how you want to handle it. Do you want things to continue going the way they are, or are you willing to step into the unknown and, you know, explore other possibilities for resolving your problems? Recognizing that it's going to be painful. It's a walk in the park.
It's going to be painful. Listen to that invitation. Welcome to more pain so you can get healed. Who wants that? I mean,
so only those people who want that can turn their scars into stars.
Oh, only those people who are willing to go through the pain can turn their scars into stars so that they can be proud of their scars. Okay, got it. What's the next step?
No pain, no gain. It's kind of like in exercising. You want to look good, well, you got to sweat, and it's gonna hurt a little bit.
Looking good. I gained like 15 pounds during COVID. Oh my gosh, it
you'll drop quickly.
I got on this. I bought a scale a couple of days ago, and I'm like, oh no, this is not happening to me. So with the jump rope, I'm definitely doing the jump rope. But yes, I digress. Keep going.
So then, analyzing your situation with someone else helps, because you have your perspective, but you need other perspectives.
That's a big one, because I can be very self-willed and thinking my ideas about me is what I think is important because it's my life and I've been living it. And that has some value, but being willing to take the input of somebody else's observation takes another level of humility, which, you know, I'm still striving to practice. Okay.
And that's absolute strength.
That's what?
Being humble is strength. That's strength control. You see, a lot of people think being humble is weak. It's not. It's the complete opposite.
Wow. Well, you tend to think that only if you've been spending some time with Jesus. Because if you don't spend time with Jesus, you don't think humility is necessarily a strength. You tend to think that people take advantage of you, you seem weak. So it's a matter of changing your perspective too, being aware of what God thinks is valuable. That's a big part of the awareness factor. Getting aware of what God thinks, what he values, so that it can kind of change our programming so that we can get the healing that we need. That was big for me, that unless I was able to kind of take on God's perspective, I could not move forward.
Well, I think you're absolutely right. In fact, even at the VA hospital, working with post-traumatic stress disorder, those doctors found that people who had faith in God, however they understood God, tended to heal, as opposed to other people who did not. So even in God does make a difference, but there's more to it, you know, than just believing in God. Many of us only want half the package. We want to come and get the goodies, but before you can get the goodies, you have to take one big giant step. And that step is you have to humble yourself. You have to say, my thoughts and will go to the side. I'm not relying on that anymore. I'm going to rely on what God says.
Yeah, that takes awareness and definitely humility. Ruth Hand says, acting and then talking again. Actions helps us apply what we are learning, that we can talk again about what happened. Being humble is a strength. She's basically endorsing the fact that talking is important. I know talking works for me personally, and it has worked in my marriage. But when I look at the society, I'm like, they've been talking for a long time. But okay, Ruth, thank you for that perspective. It helps us to apply what we are learning. And to
Well,
be honest with you, there has been a lot of progress. I do see quite a bit of progress. It's just that when it gets this, this intense, you're like, wow, you're talking a long time. You tend to forget the fact that progress has been made. Were you going to say something? I didn't mean to cut you off.
well, no, I was just going to add a few other things in terms of the counseling and going through that whole process. I think journaling also helps, because journaling helps you to write down your thoughts and to go back and look at it. And often go back and look at it, you can see things from a different perspective.
Yeah, journaling is definitely something I practice. I need to write down these thoughts that I get.
And then just meditating, just thinking, spending time to think about things. I think even after the healing, important still to journal. And what are you journaling? You're journaling your victory, which you keep reminding yourself of, and you're journaling experiences that you're overcoming. And all of these things help to reinforce and move aside all those old negative messages. And then, of course, prayer. Asking God for help is, in my opinion, quite important.
So this idea of meditating, Dawn just joined and she's big on the meditation piece. What is your perspective on meditation? Like, how do people even develop a meditation practice? Like, meditation sounds nice. What do? You just sit and just close your eyes? And what is your idea of meditation?
Well, pretty simple. Spending time to think about whatever in the world you're going through, and it sounds simple, but it's not. Mostly, well, except for this period of confinement, everybody is usually running from one place to the next. And we don't have time to think about ourselves. We don't have time to think about anybody else. So taking time to think about what am I going through? What does it mean? How meditating is just taking time to reflect. Probably that's the best way.
So are you done with the different steps to the healing process?
Yes.
Dedicate time, analyze it, explore different perspectives, and to get counseling, journaling, meditation, and prayer. Prayer is a big one. I've fallen in love with prayer, but it took a long time, because I had to realize that when I'm praying, I can really be vulnerable. And the vulnerability is such a big piece when I pray. Being able to say, God, I really feel this way, and it's raw, it's real. Because he already knows, but it took me a while to get aware that I don't have to sound, all together before him, because he already sees my mess. So thank you for those tips on how to really get on a plan for healing. And I know for myself, I continue to navigate my own scar with anxiety, but I can honestly say that I can see that my scars have become stars in many areas of my life because of this process of dedicating time, taking the time to go get treatment, talking through it, not being ashamed of saying, I need to get therapy, exploring different perspectives. I get a lot of input from people at church, from counselors. I do journal. I do the meditation piece, though. I can't say that I have that quite down packed yet, but I pray quite a bit. So I know that by doing this, it will continue to help me to turn my scars into stars. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're so appreciative. If you have a question or you would like to join our support group, please contact Dr. Brown on Instagram at ask_Dr. Mom, You may also sign up through our Facebook community, Angie Speaks, Stronger Than Splinter. Should you want to join the support group that she is offering free during this period of intense crises to help us to get clarity. And also, you may pick up my book, Peace Beyond the Splinter, Reclaim Your Promise of Peace and Profit from Anxiety's Grip Through Prayer. This is my story of how I turned my scar into stars. Thanks for joining and have a great week. We'll see you next week in another episode of Angie Speaks, Stronger Than Splinters, AKA Your Scars. Hi, Simone. Thanks for joining. We're done. Thank you, guys. Ruth, Adrian, Dawn, Simone. Thanks for joining. You can listen to us on replay. And until then, continue to strive to be stronger than your splinters. Thank you again, Dr. Brown, and we'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Okay.